Welcome in, everybody, to the Wrestling Mat here on this Wednesday. It is June 5th. We got a lot to get into today. Thank you once again for subscribing at thewrestlingmatshow.com. We are over 1,000 subscribers. More to come on the bonus content you will get because you got us to that number. But if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Turn on those notifications, hit like, make sure you check out everything we are doing here. Not only are we live 5 days a week at 5 p.m. Eastern, we have guests. You can go check out our shorts, any of the old past live shows, and who else knows what could be coming right here on the Wrestling Mat. All that coming your way, but let's get to our guest today. He is the esteemed general manager of GCW. He is a master of the internet and has been that way for more than 15 years, and he joins us here. Our third guest ever. He probably should have been our first. Let's welcome into the show, Matt Cardona.
Well, I thank you so much for naming this show after me. I'm honored.
You know what?
I was not expecting this.
This is the Matt and Matt episode. It is good to have you on, Matt. Thank you very much for taking some time out of a very busy schedule that, despite your injury, has not slowed down whatsoever, and that is a tribute to you and what you've been able to do with your career. Speaking of which, I got to let everybody know the next set of major bendies are up for pre-order. Can you tell everybody a little about that?
Oh, the big rubber guys. Here's a little sample right here. Ooh, yeah. Now, this one's sold out, long gone. But right now, we have the Road Warriors, Ethan Page, Matt Hardy. We call it Figure Fate. Matt Hardy and Ethan Page, they were planned. They were supposed to drop this month. Then Matt re-debuts in TNA, Ethan Page on NXT. I'm just thinking, money. Let's go. Let's sell these babies out. So I'm very excited. Really, really cool to have our own toy line. There they are right there. Ethan Page, Matt Hardy, Road Warriors. The way we do it is that the pre-order is the order. You have 1 full month. If you miss out, sure, you can get them later on eBay for like double the price. But if you want them for the cheapest price possible, get them now at majorbendies.com.
All right, check that out. Very much like Mosh with his shoes. I appreciate that. You get your chance to get them. You let the people know. And if you miss out, get ready to pony up. It's good business.
Yeah, and they're not going to sell out. Like, you could order 1 or 1,000. I don't care how many you order. But when it's July 1st, you're SOL, pal.
Well, let me ask you about that. There's a lot to get into here. I want to talk about you being GCW commissioner, but you just kind of clicked something in my brain there. Are you finding, now that you have done more of this, that you are seeing people buy more as collector's items to think about down the road, just like you would?
Yeah, 100%. So with these big rubber guys, this is a work in progress. We're starting off, we've been doing it for about a year, but the secondary market price is through the roof. So like that Macho Man I just held up, it's not the $50 on our website. We've done Flair, Slaughter, Demolition, Andre. They're going for over 100, sometimes over $200 on eBay.
What does that mean to you, knowing like this is what you grew up doing as a collector, and then obviously as a fan, and obviously as a wrestler yourself, and now doing it again? What does it feel like to see that secondary market and things that you're creating and the partnerships you're making create that kind of demand?
Oh, I love it. Like, for instance, we did a WrestleCon exclusive of Macho Man in alternate gear, sold out in person right away, and now they were going for hundreds of dollars. Listen, I wish everybody could get them, but this is collecting, right? I mean, we're collecting figures here, or you're collecting shoes. We're not collecting bubble gum. We're not going into Walmart and saying, I want the big red. It's just there. That's what makes collecting fun. If you could just walk into any store or go on any website at any time and it's available, it's not fun that way.
How are you making these connections? Obviously through wrestling, but How are you pitching to active wrestlers, retired wrestlers, the estates of wrestlers to go like, hey, we can do this. What do you think about it?
I think when they know how much money we're paying them, they just say yes.
And it's simple as that.
Yeah.
But it does feel as simple as that. And when did you know? Because we're going to talk about your career and how you've gotten to this point and how you've been able to use every asset that you can get your hands on to your advantage. How do you get to the point where you go, hey, we can make our own action figures? We can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I got released from WWE along with Brian Myers. A lot of these, because now there's a lot of wrestling figure companies, a lot of smaller companies out there. It's not just Mattel who makes WWE or Jazzwares who makes AEW. So like literally the week we got released from WWE, all these companies reached out, Super 7, Ringside Collectibles, and we signed on. We're like, this is great, cool. We love figures. The more the merrier. But we realized, like, we want to be as hands-on as possible. So if, for instance, Super 7 says there are delays, well, what are the delays? I want to know. I want to know exactly what that delay is. So we decided, hey, why don't we try to do this ourselves? And that's what we did with our initial toy line, the Major Bendies. They're a little smaller, about this size, 4 or 5 inches. And once those took off, we're like, let's try to create something else. Let's try to create these big rubber guys, because I grew up in the 80s. I grew up loving those LJN figures. We called them the big rubber guys. That's how you express them to fellow collectors who are casual. So that's what we named the company, and they just blew up.
Are you at the point where you get to say no to people? I say no to people
every week.
Okay, I mean,
you mean people who want figures? You mean
who want to work with you? Are you at that point where you can say, like, you know what, I think I have something else going on here? Are you at that? Do you feel like you're at that point where you can comfortably go, like, nope, I'm good with what I have going on?
Oh yeah, but like, listen, money talks, baby. Like, sure. if you're gonna pay me, I'll put my face on anything. But I thought you meant like there's people coming to us all the time. Hey, we want a bendy. Hey, we want a big rubber guy. And I'm like, sorry, pal. Like,
not free.
No. Yeah. Well, it costs a lot of money to make these. So that means I need to invest my money, Brian Meyer's money, our partner Connect's money in you. And sometimes that's just not that's not worth it, but it's not worth the risk.
How quickly did you figure those things out pre-release and post-release in terms of the business side of, okay, here's what I need to do to make this part of the business happen for myself, or bendies or podcast? You know, are you researching that? Are you talking to people before your release, after your release? What's the process there?
Well, it's a lot of trial and error, and we might talk about it later. But I did a YouTube show back in the day, Z True Long Island Story, and I used Zack Ryder because it was, I was trying to get Zack. Oh, there it is. I was trying to get Zack Ryder over, but I learned, even if the company doesn't create it, if I'm using their intellectual property, which is Zack Ryder, they own it, right? Which is fine. Totally get it. Makes perfect sense. But I knew when Brian and I started the podcast, we even approached WWE. We were still there. We said, hey, whatever it was going to be called, the Zack and Kurt podcast, Wrestling Figure Podcast. And it went up the chain, and we were told no. We were told there's no interest in podcasts. This is probably 2018. No interest in podcasts, no interest in collectibles. And that, hey, listen, thank God, because we just decided to do it at that time on our own. And I said, Brian, if we're going to do this on our own while in the company, we cannot be Zack and Kurt, because even though they're not behind it, they will own it. So we were very smart. It was Matt Cardona. It was Brian Myers. Anytime we did merchandise, we never showed our likeness. We were in like lucha masks. I wanted to protect this baby. And thank God we did, because when we got released, it was the middle of the pandemic. There's nowhere to wrestle. But thank God we had this podcast.
And I was an avid viewer of Z True Long Island Story. I was an episode 1 viewer, all of it. And I remember being at the rally in Philly, if you remember that one. I was there, had my shirt, I got a lot of people on board with that, going like, who is this guy? And I was like, just watch, because there's something here. And I think there was a lot of inspiration that a lot of people have obviously taken from that till this very day. Would Zack Ryder, the internet champion, fit better now, or would it have worked now or gotten over now in current day WWE?
I think so, but what made it so special is that no one was doing it then. Now everyone's on social media. Everyone is, tweeting, posting about their storylines. Everybody is blurring the lines. It wasn't done then. So that's why it got so, I hate using the term over, but that's why it got so over, because I was just the guy losing on Raw, already in the ring, and I couldn't move up the card. I pitched every idea under the sun, and it wasn't working. So instead of bitching and moaning, I decided to do something about it. And I started this YouTube show, and I wanted to prove to the fans that I'm more than just this guy already in the ring. And how can I show that personality if I have no entrance? If I have no time on the microphone, I'm just already in the ring. So I started the show to kind of pull back the curtain and blend Matt Cardona and Zack Ryder, and the fans really related to that.
And you felt it, but it also had resounding effects. I remember that Survivor Series when The Rock's trying to cut his promo after the show, and they're chanting for you. How did that make you feel? Did you get heat over that?
I don't know if I got heat. It felt amazing. It was great. I mean, The Rock, the biggest wrestling star, arguably of all time, in the ring. He had just come back, Madison Square Garden, and they're chanting for me still. They started the show chanting for me. I did a run-in the first match, and all the way 3 hours later, they're still chanting for me. So it was a great feeling, a great night.
Do you feel like, though, because of that kind of reaction, like you said, it was different because no one else was doing it, but do you feel like a reaction like that these days would get more attention in current day WWE, where they'd have to acknowledge it more?
I think they would definitely acknowledge it more. I think they're a lot more, open to things like that aren't necessarily in their plans. And listen, I forced their hand. I made them use me. That was my goal. They were gonna use me or fire me. I was gonna get noticed by WWE or get fired and then use that buzz elsewhere. I didn't want to get fired.
Of course not.
Of course I wanted to be, I wanted to be on Raw, WrestleMania, get action figures. And I did all that. But the goal was, hey, enough of this. Something's got to change. I'm either gonna get noticed by WWE or I'm gonna get fired and use that buzz elsewhere. And it all worked out. Now, did it all get erased? Did it all get flushed down the toilet, pushed off the stage in a wheelchair? Yeah. But, I'm somebody who likes to hold myself accountable. I will never be like, so-and-so buried me or so-and-so didn't like me. I'm man enough to say, hey, during that time, I could have easily knocked on Vince McMahon's door and been like, hey, what's going on here? Working my ass off, the high merch seller. Why are we doing this? And I didn't do that. So I don't have an answer. So I blame myself. I'm not going to say WWE bury me. I think that's the cop out. That's the easy way out. And of course, I never wanted to take that route.
Do you look back on that? You mentioned the wheelchair thing, and obviously that's not going to make you look good at the time, and it didn't lead to this big push. But do you look back and they go, well, I had some kind of moment. People still talk about that, or is it too negative?
No, I thought the wheelchair thing is great. I mean, it still pops up all the time, And at the time, I thought, it was part of the process. I'm in this storyline with John Cena.
Yeah.
Kane. I'm like, this is awesome. I could see why people thought it was a burial. And yes, it did end up storyline wise leading to me not being featured on TV anymore. And at the time, it did feel like my hard work was being erased. But like I said, I didn't knock on Vince's door. I wasn't man enough back then to ask what was going on. I blame myself for that.
And it'll be obviously a little different now. If you were to look back then when you were starting, like you said, you were the only one doing it, and to that level, did you take any direction or inspiration from anyone else as related to using social media or even websites back then?
Not really. I was just a kid who was genuinely on Facebook. Instagram wasn't even a thing.
Right.
So I was just doing things that Matt Cardona would do on my personal Facebook. I was doing them as Zack Ryder on Twitter, hanging out with my friends, posting pictures of me at the bars, like telling stories of dates gone wrong.
Right.
Stuff like that, and the fans related.
I was in the building on one of the nights in Philly, not before your time. Matt Hardy was doing the stuff with Edge and Lita, and he was popping up in Ring of Honor, and he was doing the stuff where he was not back in the company, but he kind of was. And I remember being in the building, and I had like a Matt Hardy show T-shirt, and he had people he had a street team in the building, which is 2 years before you even sign. His website was big, and obviously he's created a lot of that. I assume on the indies back then, I think it's 2 years before you sign with WWE.
It's actually funny because my first ever 8x10 that I ordered from highspots.com, somehow Matt Hardy 8x10s got mixed in with it. So listen, Matt Hardy, like Hurricane Helms, there are guys who use social media and the internet before me, but I think I'm the first one who really blended the character and the person and used it to change my spot in a major company.
Obviously, WWE has leaned into social media, making it an essential part of their programming and storylines for fans that you got to follow it. There was up and down success, I think, of Mixed Match Challenge, and that was exclusive to Facebook. Now they're back, and they're doing WWE Speed, and it's the 3-minute matches, and it's specifically on Twitter, X, whatever you think. What do you think of that concept? Do you think they're doing it the right way?
I actually like that. It's something exclusive to social media. It's just a quick, snackable match. And it's not really, it's not changing. They're still posting everything from Raw, NXT, SmackDown. It's just a bonus thing. So it's just extra exposure for these guys and girls.
How would you handle that being on that show?
Oh man, 3 minutes. That's not my style of wrestling. Quick and fast. No, man. I like to grab a hold, so I don't know if that would work for me.
Which, admittedly, I think I was a little surprised to see Andrade and Carl Anderson listed on the latest show this week. I mean, that it doesn't it kind of if you're putting that show together, what does it look like for you?
It's definitely how they're doing. The people who are on it, the people who can give you that hard hitting, quick action. And I think, guys can use it as an opportunity. Maybe they're not getting featured on television. Well, hey, impress somebody on this show. Use everything as an opportunity.
And I know you do that. Now, you've created your own universe with podcasts, live shows, the figures, so much more. What kind of consideration do you give, considering the control you have over those things, if you are or will or have had discussions with working with top promotions?
In regards to would I ever give it up?
Yeah. I mean, that's no. Okay.
It's a non-negotiable. This stuff, the podcast, the toy line, this, not only is it my passion, not only is it making a lot of money, but it's so much fun and I love it. And it's just a non-negotiable, something I could never give up.
What a nice thing to hear, because you think of that and I know this is a dumb question because I know you miss the big crowds. Who wouldn't want to work in front?
100%.
Of course, you see a show in France like they had last month. How would that not inspire you in some way, right?
I say it all the time. I don't care how you define success, accolades, money, happiness. These past 4 years have been the most successful years of my career. I've been having the most fun, making the most money, and arguably getting the most attention, the most buzz than I ever have. But of course, when Chelsea's wrestling at MSG, I get a little jealous. Of course, I wish I had a WrestleMania moment again. Even a couple months ago, doing AEW with Adam Copeland. And hey, that arena was packed. I was there. That hard camps, I was packed too. And I miss something like that. You think I want to wrestle in LA in the Ukrainian Cultural Center? No, I want to be the Staples Center. Right. But right now, I'm just, whatever I have control over, I'm just dominating it, or at least trying to,
How do you evolve that over time? How do you say, okay, this was working when I started on my own, it's not working anymore? What kind of metrics, what kind of things are you looking at where you go, okay, let's switch this up now, let's add this to it?
Well, yeah, even if you look at me from day one of getting released to now, I'm always changing it up, whether it be, the Deathmatch King, the Indy God, just always changing things up, and not everything's going to work. I'm going to throw something against the wall, and sometimes it's not going to stick, and that's fine. You pivot, you adjust, and that's how you learn, is by failure. But right now, everything's in my hands. In WWE, towards the end, I felt like there's only so many things I can control, and that's fine. Right. I say this all the time. Like in WWE, you can control your attitude, your physique, and your gear. You know what I'm saying? That's about it. Just, just always be ready to show up. And that's how Always Ready got started, was just always be ready. Right. But now I can control everything. And listen, sometimes it's overwhelming. My brain doesn't stop. My job doesn't stop. From the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I am doing something work related, but my work is pro wrestling, talking about pro wrestling figures and making pro wrestling figures. Is it really work?
It's not. And I think, I've always felt the same way myself, because we came up on that. How have you used your lifetime of fandom to your advantage, especially in those last few years? Well,
I knew when I got released, I was not just going to be, and listen, I love the Honky Tonk Man. Okay. This is not an insult to the Honky Tonk Man, but this was not going to be my Honky Tonk Man run, where I do the same old shit, the same old game, and it's working for him.
Hey, he doesn't bump on his finish, brother. That's good.
And you should see his prices at the conventions, and they're selling, right? But I knew that this was going to be my, let's call it my Hollywood Hogan era, my chance to evolve and change everything about me. But how do you do that, right? Especially, like I said, I get fired. There's nowhere to go. There's no indies. It's the middle of the pandemic. I tried AEW. Blessing in disguise, it didn't work out, right? It didn't work out. Had a cup of coffee there. And I knew once the world opened up, I couldn't just be Zack Ryder called Matt Cardona. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And even at the end of my WWE run, like, I dropped the headband, the glasses, the woo-woo-woo. I was just like a guy, which I knew kind of sucked. But without the company investing, storyline time, TV time, it was hard to get anything over. So now I knew, okay, this is my chance. And when I got approached to do the death match in GCW, hey, my knee-jerk reaction was absolutely not. There's no way I'm wrestling this drug addict criminal who was just on dark side of the ring. There's no way. And then I took a step back. I said, you know what? People are going to talk about this match. People are going to want to watch Zack Ryder getting carved up by Nick Gage. And that match, it changed my career and it changed my life.
Were you, what was your, were you scared?
Scared. Honestly, this is no joke. Scared to death.
Because you can't practice it. You can't get ready for it.
I thought they were going to I thought there's a good chance they might murder me in this ring. Get like buzz for this Nick Gage guy. I'm not joking one bit.
Did you look back on that Arquette match and get worried because of what happened there?
Of course. And he was just featured on Dark Side of the Ring. So he was like the talk. I was legit scared, but I knew I had to do it. I had to do it. And I couldn't just like dip my toe in. This couldn't be a street fight. This had to be a death match. And it was.
I want to talk more about GCW and what you're doing now in just a little bit, but I wanted to go back to what you said. You said that the AEW, the first time you're there, not landing there was a blessing in disguise. Why would you say it's the case?
So many guys get lost in the shuffle, and I feel like I would have. And if I was just on their show at that time, I feel like I would have been on Dark or whatever those shows were, Elevation.
Yeah.
And I would not have found myself on the Indies. I would not have had that death match. I would not have truly found myself and who Matt Cardona is if I was just stuck there.
I think I noticed this when I was in WWE, the 5 years I was there, and we had a little crossover, but it's definitely different. But we both know that for a time, being a fan while being in the business was frowned upon. I was told for a while, we're not going to hire any announcers that know the business. We want them to go in fresh. Right. And I was like, okay, cool. Thank goodness they changed their ways. When did you start to see a shift away from that?
Man, I'd say probably around the time of my YouTube show. Because listen, when I debuted on the roster, I think I'm 22 years old. It's 2007. There's guys like Undertaker, JBL, Hardcore Holly. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't have walked into the locker room and said, hey, Bob, I just got your new Jax figure. They would have shit in my Target bag and thrown me out of the locker room. But different time, different era. And I don't blame those guys, right? They didn't grow up chasing the ice cream man for those ice cream bars. You know, they didn't grow up wrestling their wrestling buddies or playing with their wrestling figures or playing the video games. So I would say around the time I started that YouTube show, the thing started to shift.
What do you think about Undertaker doing YouTube face now on a weekly basis?
I love it. It's so great. And I think it's so great that guys are able to, pay tribute to their favorites wearing their gear. If Zack Ryder ever wore like tribute Shawn Michaels gear, I would have called a mark, probably wouldn't have been allowed to wear it, but I'm glad it's being embraced. Why not? We're all fans. I think being a fan should be celebrated.
Absolutely. Also get you booked on WrestleMania this year, so that works out too. If you ask Gargano and Ciampa. You mentioned some stuff not working, and you tried some stuff out. Has there been a piece of merch or an idea that you've really wanted to come to fruition that just it flopped, or you just haven't been able to pull it off yet?
All right, so I'm going to give you my my bookends of merch on the Indies so far. Something that did a lot of money, a lot of business for me, and something I thought would, but totally flopped. So my match with Nick Gage, I knew I was going to get bloody, right? So I wore a white T-shirt. I'm sure there's going to be a couple sprinkles of blood on it. This thing turned maroon, okay? You couldn't see any white on this. You would have thought I wore a maroon shirt out to the ring that night. And I said, this match, it's something, it's special. That night we trended over UFC, over the Olympics. I'm like, this is special. I got to do something with this. And I'm such a big fan. I contacted the company who makes the WrestleMania plaques for WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Where they use the ring canvas and the autograph photo. Well, we use my shirt, the bloody shirt, as a canvas, the signed photo. I made like 20 grand off that T-shirt. Okay.
Whoa.
Off a T-shirt that I spent $15 on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So that was like, oh my God. And from that match, I've had 3 action figures from it. So that's even more money. Right. And that match changed my whole life and career. So I made even more money, in the back end. Now here's something that I thought would take off, totally flopped. I'm the deathmatch king. I have a custom crown, right? I thought, what if we make like Burger King style crowns, but it's shaped like my crown, but it fits like a Burger King crown. It's a paper, the hard paper, cardboard-esque, sell for $10. Those things will fly. And I had to get thousands made because it's an original mold. Bro, I can't even give those things away at the merch table. Nobody, like now it's like, whatever you buy, free crown with purchase.
Oh, free crown. Did they come with the Zack Ryder Dolph Ziggler stickers still? You still got those lying around anywhere?
Well, that's another thing that totally bombed. We thought this is the year, like the end of my YouTube show. It had set it up, everything I was doing on that show was just working. Right. So I'm like, oh, me and Ziggler, we'll challenge each other for a WrestleMania match, New York, New Jersey. It's going to happen. We made all these stickers, these like yin yang stickers. And the plan was people would like put them all over New York, New Jersey. Like those Obey stickers were popular at the time. It didn't work out because people were like putting them on their PlayStation, or their laptops.
And B,
this is when the Zack Ryder, push off the stage of the wheelchair kind of killed off all my momentum. So I wasted all this money on stickers, and then Ziggler ended up having a match at WrestleMania, and then I watched the show from Miz's press box that he bought his family.
Good and bad.
Thanks for bringing that one up.
Sorry, yes, you're right. All right, if you're starting a wrestling company today,
I wouldn't.
Which you would, and I know that answer. Is Miz in your top 10 picks based on what he does?
Oh, if I have infinite money and infinite
fun, you got it. You
100%. He can do it all. He can do it all, and I'm glad that he's finally getting his flowers. The Miz can do it all. He is a natural smoother. Like he can BSer, he can talk. He's somebody who can do media, he can do movies, TV shows, and he can go in the ring. Some of my favorite matches with Miz, I'll never forget. One time we had a match in Madison Square Garden, and I know it's going to make me sound old, but we called it on the fly. We legit called it on the fly.
Blew some indie people minds. What does that mean? Get out of here.
And guess what? It was Miz calling the match because he had so much time with John Cena. When he was the champ, he is so good. Does not get the credit that he deserves.
I agree, and always has his hands in something. Him and I had a whole conversation about that, whether it be golf or his TV shows, or I saw Maurice announce something teasing about a reality or a real estate show today.
Sure.
A lot of people not only can learn from you, but him as well. Let's go back. Did you know tomorrow is a major milestone in your career?
What's the date?
2008.
June something 2008?
Yes.
Is this like a joke?
Something aired on June 6, 2008.
Not a clue.
Okay. Is Adam Copeland still mad that your team lost to Colin Delaney, Nunzio, Funaki, and Batista on that SmackDown?
Honestly, the only reason I remember that match is because like Little Guido Nunzio talks about all the time.
Does he really?
He does. I think that's Staples Center, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
15,000 strong, man.
He talks about it all the time. Sold out Staples Center.
I looked at it. I was like, there's got to be something around there. I looked at it because I was looking to see how many times you and Edge were in the ring together, which I knew the match for AEW is the only time it's one-on-one. Isn't that correct?
That's right. That was my little dream match from before I got into the business, was to wrestle Edge. And then, we become the Edgeheads, which was fantastic. That was our idea, Hawkins and I's idea. And, we run in that main event of WrestleMania 24. And I'm thinking, like, because everything was, while we were with Adam, everything was working. I'm thinking, next year, Edgeheads explode. Edge versus Hawkins versus Ryder, main event, maybe a WrestleMania 25. No. Hawkins and Ryder were lumberjacks in the tag team pre-show match.
Oh, the lumberjack match, which I think somebody's trying to bring back in a couple of weeks. But let's talk about GCW. You are the GCW general manager.
Yeah.
You may have had a hand this past weekend, in Joey Janela having a very quick reign as the GCW champion, because now
champion,
it's Mance
Warner. He's best for business. What can I say?
Well, why does Joey Janela? There's Mance. He did win. Do or die. He did it. He is the GCW champion, and you were right there raising his hand when it was all said and done. I will start with Joey, though, who was a guest in this program. Yeah. Why does Joey not fit your idea of an ideal GCW champion?
How can he be the face of the company if he's missing a tooth?
What if he fixed the tooth?
Hey, if he fixed the tooth, maybe. He's the heart and soul of GCW. He is like the backbone, the past, the present, but is he the future? I'm not sure.
Why does Mance Warner fit that better?
Because Mance has a chip on his shoulder. Mance, he knows what's best for business, and hey, listen, he's dating my heater SDL. Maybe I'm a little bit of favoritism towards him, but I do think he's best for business.
What's your 5-year plan for GCW?
Man, if I was if I was the owner, if I could really change some things up, get some fucking ring steps. Jesus Christ.
I would not have even thought of that.
Get some ring steps, get some, have the ring apron say like the name of the show. Let's put a little more money into the production. I'm not saying this needs to be WWE level, but come on, this needs to be ECW on TNN level.
You can't make the ring steps happen as the GM?
Listen, we need something. And listen, I think GCW, and this is a shoot. I think it is the number 3 company, definitely in the US, maybe the world. I mean, they run every single weekend, multiple times, all over the country, all over the world. All right. Like if I wanted to stay busy just doing GCW and be a full-time pro wrestler, I could. But, I do other things, so I bounce in and out. But GCW, I mean, it's unbelievable. People think it's just death match wrestling, just like people thought ECW was extreme bloody. It's not. Is there? Sure. Of course. There's also some of the best independent wrestling out there with some of these young up-and-comers. They bring in people from Japan, Mexico. Then you have me doing sports entertainment style. It is this perfect melting pot. And, man, I love to be a part of GCW. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's amazing when I saw the calendar and saw that many dates, and I saw return dates on before first dates had even happened, which just doesn't happen for indies, and going to Japan and, taking it around North America. I think it shows you, seems like they're pretty good. Would you say there's a good business plan with Brett running the show right now? Do you feel confident in that?
Man. And like, we did I say we, because I feel like I am part of that roster. I really do. And we did Hammerstein Ballroom sold a couple years ago. I really want to do it again. I've been getting on Brett. Please, let's do Hammerstein again, because I feel like we need to build towards something. We need like a WrestleMania.
Right. You need is there another venue like that though that you'd like to get to that
bigger
would
than
have
Hammerstein?
Significance? Maybe not necessarily bigger, but that's similar kind of significance to get in that kind of building.
I don't know.
Maybe it is bigger.
I think we should do Hammerstein one more time, to prove it wasn't a fluke. And then maybe, hey, Nassau Coliseum, let's go, baby, Long Island. Imagine that.
I would like that. That would be fun to watch. Have any other promotions reached out to you about office roles?
No.
Okay.
No. So here's the thing. I get hurt, right? Shit happens. No good time to get injured. I was clotheslining someone over the top rope, and I felt it. Pop. Shit. Like I knew right away. Even though I've never torn my pec before, never had an injured chest, nothing, but I felt it. I was right. I had to get surgery. And those first 2 days, instead of bitching and moaning and feeling bad for myself, I was just on my calendar, my Chelsea Green calendar. I don't use one on my phone. I use a paper Chelsea Green calendar. And I was just contacting all the promoters, letting them know I can't wrestle. Do you still want me? If you don't, great. I found something else. And I kind of screwed myself because my June this month, it is the busiest I've been since I was released from WWE. And I put this on social media. I want to know if there's a professional wrestler right now who has a busier June schedule than me date-wise. And not just indie, WWE. And if there is, good, because they're active and I'm injured. But
right.
I don't know if there is. I don't know if there is.
Different than you, but I looked up, Joey had more matches than Cody last year. Like I went, testament to him. Cody's the busiest guy out there. Do you look at a calendar and go, I have to fill these? Do you go, well, I'm working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm good? Or is it like, well, there's a Wednesday, there's a Thursday, there's a Monday I can make.
This month, I took a Monday signing this week. I got my first ever seminar, which I hate doing. Well, maybe I'll love it. Maybe I'll love it.
Well, what's your seminar going to consist of? What does it look like?
Not anything in the ring, not how to do moves, not how to work on your hammerlock. I'm going to be an open book and let these guys and girls ask me questions about how to get over, how to stay relevant, how to keep your head down when things are tough and just fight through it, how to use social media, how to make money on merchandise, how to market yourself. Now, I don't know all the tricks. I don't know everything, but I think I've proven that I know a decent amount. Anybody could teach you how to do a hammerlock. Do a different seminar for that. I'm going to teach you how to make money.
Yeah, it's beyond the moves. I think people are starting to come back around to that. And, I always point to the fact that Toni Storm might be the most over thing in AEW, and it's not about her matches.
I'm not going to say who this person is, okay? I was talking to a young up-and-comer the other day at GCW. They were a little frustrated. I'm not going to name drop them. And I said, listen, after this match tonight, I want you to just take your phone and cut a promo, a real promo, venting your frustration to the camera, right? So I looked at their social media. They posted on 5/28, which was what, 2 weeks ago?
Yep.
This like spot video. Okay. It has 900 views. Okay. The promo I told them to cut a couple days ago, 52,000 views. Now, okay, is that I'm sure you can show me a video of moves, but I'm just saying they need to be connected to you. Right? The reason the Young Bucks, they can do the coolest moves in the world, but people feel them. They love them. They root for them. They hate them. They're connected. That's why the Young Bucks are so successful. They did being the elite. People feel like they're along for the ride. And on top of that, they're fantastic performers.
That's the bonus of it. They can go get it done. But I remember, I've told this a little bit. My first foray into the Indies, I'm working for Dreamer for House of Hardcore. And my first show, Matt Hardy is supposed to work the main event. He had just gotten back with WWE, won the ladder match at Mania, and showed up with the Raw Tag Team title. Of course, Tommy finds out he can't take any bumps. So he appears before the show. He's in full gimmick. He's got the Raw Tag title. They have to work their way out of the match. And everybody on the internet was up in arms. But everybody who was there, you know what? They were happy because they got to take a picture with that guy.
Sure.
And no one cared about broken mat wrestling matches. It was everything else around it.
I get to these indie shows and I'm blown away that there are people in the back who are going over their matches rather than selling merch. Now listen, I'm not even talking about the making money part. Okay. My goal every indie show is to make as much, if not more money selling merch than I do wrestling. And I get paid a lot to wrestle. Okay. But the most important part is making that connection with the audience, that interaction with them at your table that can last a lifetime. You can make a lifelong fan and they can buy a $5 sticker or, a $60 action figure or whatever. But that connection you make with the audience is so much more important than your match. And I'm not saying have a bad match.
No.
I'm not saying that. But the connection is more important. If two indie guys, they do Rock, Hogan, WrestleMania 18, move for move, people go, that match sucked, right? It wasn't the moves that made that match good. It was the connection, the characters, the superstars. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you because, it's why you're in the comment section. You answer people, you talk to them, and you make that connection. And you got to go get yourself over almost every night on the indies.
And I tell that too. I learned this from William Regal. When you walk through that curtain, you got to pretend nobody knows who you are and they've never seen you, and you got to work your ass off to make them know who you are. And even after the Edgeheads thing ended, and I got drafted to ECW. And I knew in a big change, I became the Zack Ryder, the Broski Zack Ryder. I knew people weren't going to remember me by name, but they might remember me, the one-legged tight guy, the woo-woo-woo guy, the guy with the headband. You got to stand out and find a way to make those people remember you.
As your current role as the GM of GCW, amongst many other things, what GM or authority figure from wrestling history has inspired you the most?
Eric Bischoff, the OG.
Oh!
The OG. 100%. I might wear a karate gi coming up.
Oh, okay. Are you going to dye the hair or leave the hair? There's options there. I was there that night in New Jersey when he debuted. And he came out to Back in Black, which is the only time he was able to use it because I guess Vince, because AC/DC paid for it for the night or whatever. And he showed up, and then there he is. And now he's on YouTube like the rest of us now. So
I love Eric. I know he gets a lot of heat, but I love Eazy-E.
If you're listening and paying attention, there's a lot to learn there for how he conducts his business. One more before I let you go. What do you want to see out of wrestling in 2024 that we're not seeing now?
Me on television. I love being the Indie God. I love being the Deathmatch King. I was 2-time PWI Independent Wrestler of the Year. I've done all there is to do, right? Listen, I'll find a way to raise the stakes on the indies if I have to, 100%. But I've worked my ass off for peanuts. I want the peanut butter. I want the whole jar. You know what I'm saying? I want that jar of peanut butter. I want to taste it. I want to give my dog some peanut butter too. They love peanut butter. They love it. Dude and Walt, they love that peanut butter. So I'm not saying the indie god's over, right? But I don't want to end my career being the indie god. And I'm not even close to ending my career. I just turned 39. I'm in my prime. I'm injured. Yeah, that sucks. I'm going to show up. People want to know when. You'll find out. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm always ready. And my goal is to get on television, but not just to be there. I've been just a guy on the roster. Been there, done that. I'm coming to take what I know. No one deserves anything, right? For what I've earned and what I know I can accomplish.
I know you can do that. I know you have a lot of always work all the time because that's the kind of guy you are. The brain's always moving. Tell everybody once again where they can find you, what you have coming up, and a little bit more about those major bendies.
Man, follow me on social media at the Matt Cardona. My calendar's posted. I got stuff every weekend. Hey, sometimes weekdays this month, but major bendies, get your big rubber guys. Listen to the Major Wrestler podcast and just follow me on social media. This run has been so much fun. It's changed my life. I really do think it's changed independent wrestling, and I think I will go down in the history books. Guys like, Reckless Youth, they'll talk about
Youth. Christopher Daniels, Reckless Youth are all going to the Indie Hall of Fame.
Young Bucks, myself, but like I said, I think it's time to trade in that Indie God hat, if you know what I'm saying.
We'll be keeping an eye out for that. Matt, thank you for joining us on The Wrestling Mat, letting me use your name for the show.
I was about to say, thank you for naming your show after me. I'm honored.
All right, there you go. Matt Cardona joining us. We'll be back with more here on The Wrestling Mat. Hey, this is Matt Camp. Thanks for checking out one of our recent clips from The Wrestling Mat. Why is someone so close to The Rock kind of throwing Cody under the bus?
Yeah, a lot of people won't engage with Jim Cornette. I did just because I have a mark for Jim Cornette. And I cut
Please subscribe right now. Hit the like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And I think you should listen to your TV partner. Let me tell you about WWE and a little insight. More subscribers means more content. And make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23 on both Twitter and Instagram. Hey, we're back. How great was Matt Cardona? Fantastic to have him. And by the way, we're not done yet. So if you're still watching us, you should be, because we have a lot more to get to. Big thank you to Matt Cardona for joining us here. That's his name up on the board right there. That says Matt Cardona. I'm Matt Camp, though. Thank you all for hanging in with us for nearly 40 minutes from Matt Cardona. A true student of the game, a true businessman of the game. If you're listening very closely, there's a lot there that he is well aware of and how to make the most of your name, even on the independent circuit. Thank you, Courtney. That was indeed awesome. Annie, it was truly fantastic. I really enjoyed everything that we saw from Matt Cardona there. And, get some ring steps at GCW, man. Cardona, spend a little cash. Brett, a little money. Ring steps of some kind. While that interview was going on, I got to take I got a heads up about the ratings for NXT last night. NXT, and 768,000 people. A .22 in the demo, up from 703 the week before. What an impressive number for NXT last night. Now, what is the reason behind that? Because I'm having a hard time believing that Jordan Grace and Ethan Page are the absolute reasons for that. And I'm not saying that they're not the reasons. They are contributing to that number. I think people know what TNA is. I don't think a lot of people watch TNA. I think it's seen more via social media, and I know they're making some changes, and we'll get to that coming up in a little bit. But I think if you could generate interest with just the idea of an invasion or a forbidden door. And the idea of that sounds very good. Jordynne Grace pops up as a complete surprise last week on NXT television to set up the match with Roxanne Perez. It's the TNA Women's Knockouts Champion. It's the NXT Women's Champion. And it's new, and it's interesting, and it's not paint by numbers. And I go, and also Jordynne Grace jumps off the page because of her look. And then she got in the ring last night to begin the show, pretty much, against Stevie Turner, and had a match. To me, not that it was a squash, but it was an exhibition. It was a spotlight match. It was, here's Jordynne Grace. Here's what she can do. Maybe you haven't watched her TNA matches. Maybe you don't tune in on Access or the various ways to watch Impact. But we're going to put her in front of the biggest audience she's ever worked in front of here in WWE on NXT. And here's what she can do. And she hit it out of the park, just like she hit it out of the park at the Royal Rumble, which is a big reason I think we are seeing her in WWE right now. Shawn Michaels has talked about, hey, you got her first, but I need that favor. He called that favor in, and Jordynne Grace hit a home run. I also want to take a look at how she's being presented, because this is always something that you have to juggle when it comes to these cross-promotional shows. Who's getting the win? Who's getting the loss? Okay, did this company get a win here? The other company's got to get a win there. What's the presentation look like? Who's going to look strong? Who's going to look weak? How do we balance that out? And that gets dangerous. That gets very shifty. You don't know the dynamics of that. How's it going to work out correctly? What I watched last night was WWE feature a talent from another company and make her basically the star of NXT last night. Not only in presentation, coming to the ring, the match, but they sprinkled her throughout the rest of the show. For those who knew, little callback with Meech and Mia Yim, TNA. Little things like that were dropped in. They made Jordynne Grace matter. And a week ago, a lot of that audience probably didn't know who Jordynne Grace was. So as, she gets the win. She gets a big entrance. She acknowledges the NXT thing. Who the hell knows where that's going to go? But they presented her in a very big way. Why? Because WWE had every reason to do that. Because she's going to be on their pay-per-view this weekend. And she's going to fight their champion this weekend. They sure as hell didn't really feature Roxanne in that way, which I thought was interesting. It's almost like Jordynne can carry herself better. It's almost like it would be a good idea for Jordynne Grace to win the NXT Women's Championship this weekend in Las Vegas. And I think based on, we'll see. I don't know how WWE will look at that rating. I don't know if they'll give themselves credit, the idea, whatever it may be. This is a way to show someone off who now, I would have to think, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Based on how you've seen Jordynne Grace presented from last week on NXT to this week on NXT, do you believe that Jordynne Grace can walk out of Las Vegas with the NXT Women's Championship? Because I think she can. And I don't know. Typically, that wouldn't happen. But I think that can work. I think that makes sense. Because you got two things here you're dealing with at the same time, which is not easy to do, and I think NXT is doing a good job of it. You brought Jordynne Grace over from NXT, or from TNA, to be part of NXT. You have featured her. She's in a title match. She jumped the line. That's okay. Think of how she's presented. Then you have Ethan Page show up, who maybe in front of 300 to 400 fans in Orlando who are hardcore wrestling fans knew who he was. But listen, it's not like he was getting this big feature spot in AEW. They dropped the ball with Ethan Page. It looked like he had something going on in Ring of Honor, which once again doesn't get a lot of eyeballs, and they let that go away. And yet he got a pop. And he got buzz, and he played up the, I haven't signed yet. Well, Apparently he did, and he's going right to the NXT Championship. Old thinking would be, oh, that's cool that they're there. They're both going to lose. Now, Jordynne Grace presented very well, looking strong. To me, has come across as a far more interesting character, believable wrestler than Roxanne Perez. I believe Jordynne Grace can and probably should win the NXT Women's Championship. I would capitalize on this. Roxanne will be fine if she loses. I would roll with this. I would see where you're at. And I would have to think there was a plan in place ahead of time. Hey, we want, Jordan for this, and this. And this will be date number 3. Don't count the Rumble. Last week's NXT, this week's NXT, and Battleground this weekend. Maybe it is one, 3 and done, if you will. But the door's back open. Or maybe not. Maybe there's the question of, do WWE people show up in TNA? Do NXT talent show up in TNA? I saw the tweets. This is where I think they got the rating from. Xavier Woods, the former Consequences Creed in TNA. Drew McIntyre. Meechin. Chelsea Green. All of those people just start talking about NXT, start talking about TNA. And there is promotion, organic promotion, because not everybody did that. And look, you could see it sometimes, right? Keep an eye on social media of AEW's talent. A lot of them will post the exact same thing about Dynamite tonight. The smart ones will mix it up. WWE used to do that all the time. Post this. Good, smarter talent could find ways to massage it and make it their own voice. AEW will send out the blast of, hey, post this for the show tonight. What we saw last week after Jordynne Grace showed up was WWE talent just looking and going like, hey, that's pretty cool. Drew McIntyre. Hey, that's pretty cool. The door swings both. All he said, the door swings both ways. But it's intriguing. And you know what? That's been the top. This is the best promotion TNA has gotten in forever. It probably covered up some of the concern about TNA, and I want to hit that here. There's reports out there. I know Mike Johnson has kind of quieted the gloom and doom. People are getting their money. It's not old TNA with Dixie and Billy Corgan and how we're going to get there week to week. I think there's some question right now about where TNA is going, and I think there was the Meltzer report. They're looking for a place to kind of be all-encompassing and a place to hold their TV, and I know Mike Johnson talked about that too. I think Dave brought up Full Sail. The old NXT home. They're in Orlando. Okay, maybe. It's hard for me to not jump to, if we can go back to the Hollywood Blondes comment from a couple ago, merging the two. And I don't know if it's about merging the two. Because to me, there are some talent in TNA that WWE could get a lot out of. Jordynne Grace being at the top of that list. She's not the only one. Hey, Tom Phillips is in TNA. Would be good to have Tom Phillips back in WWE. Never should have gone in the first place. I think everybody knows that. But not only do they have talent in the ring, out of the ring, that could be useful. They have one hell of a library from the last 20 years. And think about all the content that can be created. When I was in WWE, right before the ROH sale, and there was talk of that potentially happening, my thought was, man, I hope we get that. I hope we get that. Because my goodness, the stories we could tell about AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. At the time, Jeff Hardy was there. Think about that. Think of all that footage that's out there. The legends that have come through there. And that's just a couple of names I mentioned. Think of the full stories you can tell. Ring of Honor. Then I thought maybe TNA. So now I'm kind of thinking, hey, what's the working agreement? How far does this go? I don't want to see anybody go out of business. I hope everybody's paid accordingly, but is there something there to TKO buying TNA? I don't think they would keep everybody, which is a shame. And I think that would, behind the scenes, not everyone would stick around. And Anthem seems to be tightening the belt a little bit. So there is that, and that's the sad part of it. But I do wonder here, is this an open conversation? Is this an ongoing, is it a fluid conversation between TKO and Anthem, parent companies of WWE and TNA? It's intriguing. And you know what? We're talking about it. The impact Jordan Grace, pardon the pun, has made is intriguing. Now, does that door swing both ways, as Drew McIntyre said? Do we see WWE people show up at the TNA pay-per-view live or their tapings, since they aren't live on TV? That's the next step after this weekend. And, of course, we'll see if Jordan Grace wins. Now, Ethan Page, going back to him, shows up last week, takes out Trick, talks about beating up Metaphor. Plays up on social media, he doesn't have a contract. Showing his big rubber guy that Matt Cardona was just talking about and the timing of that. And then he is on. There's the big rubber guys. There's Ethan Page in his AEW gear. Who knows what he'll look like in WWE and NXT. We're going to find out this weekend, because not only does he get a contract from Ava, he also gets a title shot. There's Ethan Page. There's Ava. There's Trick Williams. Hell of a deal he signed, huh? Hell of a deal he signed. And by the way, you want to point out that somebody skipped the line? He negotiated well, didn't he? If he negotiated the title shot, he got it, and now he's there. So it's a little different with Ethan Page versus Jordan, because Jordan is still signed to TNA, as far as we know. Whereas Ethan Page now, he's there. A little easier to say, all right, Ethan lost, and maybe Metaphor gets involved, and now he's just in the universe. He is part of WWE. I don't think you're beating Trick this weekend. But how do you book Ethan Page? You've presented him as this big free agent that you've signed. Is it a win for Trick and a beatdown after the fact? Perhaps. I think there's money very clearly in Ethan Page and where he's gotten himself to. I think he fits perfectly in the current version of NXT. I don't think he's needs to be or should be fast-tracked to Raw or SmackDown. NXT needs experienced talent working with someone like Trick Williams, who is clearly the main event money that WWE is looking for down the road. But Trick needs to just get a bunch of matches under his belt. He needs to just work. He needs to... This is what NXT is. It is developmental. It happens to be on television, and USA pays for it. And CW paid even more for it, I assume. I know they did. But it is figuring this stuff out. That NXT Women's North American Championship Summit, oof. But you want to get those people some time. They need the live reps. They just happen to be on national television getting those live reps, cutting those promos. Some floated, some sunk. We'll come back again, though, because it's developmental. It's not Raw and SmackDown. I get that. I think they could get more reps. I say it all the time. I think that NXT needs to be running more shows or needs to be running more, they have those PC Lives. I don't even know if they have those anymore, but everybody down there just needs to work and work in front of crowds and screw up and get better. Learn from their mistakes, not just work in the same 5 rings in the warehouse next to the PC. If you're going to get better, you got to get thrown into the deep end. You got to throw people on main roster live event shows. That's how it used to be. They would check them out. They'd bring them to Raw. They worked dark matches. And they were doing that for a time. That seems to have gone away. But I want to say like my last 2+ years there, you watched Raw, you were seeing Trick Williams, Carmelo, Kiana, Tiffany Stratton, all different kinds of people. Von Wagner was on those. They just took a look. And guess what? Here you go. Go work in front of 7, 8, 9,000, 10,000 people. It's not Raw, but it's different than working in front of 400 in the warehouse with that blank wall in front of you at the hard cam. I do think WWE needs to do more of that. I don't think the PC is a fix-all or a guarantee. Think about the last couple of years. Not about who's come up. Talk about who's been successful coming up. I think they have figured things out with Braun Breaker. I thought he floundered a bit in NXT. I don't know where Carmelo is right now. You can think he's good. He hasn't shown it at the high level that I think people are expecting of him. Blair Davenport kind of getting into a mix now. I don't know what she's going to be. Tiffany's money. We know that. Jade basically skipped over NXT, as she should have. Who are you pointing to from NXT the last couple of years that's killing it? I'm a big Grayson Waller fan. I think he's kind of been dragged down by the Austin Theory stuff. I think they want Theory to be more than he is, and now maybe he's going babyface. Where the hell's Pretty Deadly? They're damn good. I know they've been banged up a little bit. There's part of that. Who are we looking at from the last couple of years of NXT that is showing, other than a couple names, hey, this Performance Center thing's working? Not a lot. Ian just said Waller was great on the Indies. Yeah, because he was on the Indies first. Because he learned his way in Australia. Patrick mentioned Dijak. Kind of a rehab program in NXT of his WWE career. And we haven't seen him on Raw yet. Ilya, okay, I'll give you that one. Once again, not really a PC person. Ilya had a career before WWE. And I'm not saying it's all got to be from scratch people. There's a mix. There are people that went through the WWE system after the Indies and got a polish on them, a shine on them. They went through finishings classes. Shawn Michaels used to teach those classes. You're that far away. And then there's classes down there that are from scratch. Hello, Division I athlete who played insert sport here that we recruited from this WrestleMania or SummerSlam tryout. Welcome to wrestling. Now you're going to learn everything. They have that too. You know, that's the Creed brothers. I think they're learning a little bit after what was somewhat of a disastrous main event tag team title match against the Judgment Day. Ivy Nile, not really doing much with her. You know, Maxine did like 5 backstage vignettes and managing things with Stone and Von Wagner. They shot her up the roster. She wasn't ready for Maxim Male Models. They adjusted it. And now look what she's doing. But I'm talking about where are your main event caliber people that NXT is producing. Trick Williams is in that category. Braun might be. And I'm not even totally convinced of that. Tiffany's there. Tiffany will be there. But I think they need to take a look at what they have at that place. And I do think there's some revamping that could be done. I think there needs to be more character work down there. I think there needs to be more promo work down there. I think people down there just need to work in front of crowds. They need time. I agree with that 100%. But I think they could be making more of the time. And I also think they could take a look at that place and go, we are paying a shit ton of people to train and live here. Do we need all this? And I'm not saying the Indies are loaded up with talent right now, because I don't think they are. There is some talent. We'll see who rises to the top. But there's a lot in that performance center that feels like a waste of money. And I think those resources need to be looked at again, because I think it should say something that NXT product has gotten a shot in the arm from Ethan Page, who had been a missed opportunity in AEW and not used and not coming off of any kind of hot run, and Jordan Grace, who is part of a company that is certainly not hot right now. The fact that those two gave NXT a shot in the arm is a bit of an indictment on where that brand is and what that performance center looks like. Something to think about. A little talk about AEW here, because they have Dynamite tonight, and here is what they've announced. MJF has returned and will now return to Dynamite. Here is the whole announced show for tonight, which gets underway in less than 2 hours. We know about Swerve and Roddy, Mariah May and Saraya. Guess was supposed to happen last week, and now it's happening this week. Sure. Blackpool Combat Club, welcome back, Wheeler Yuta. Glad to see he is cleared. Just kind of thrown into this 8-man tag with CMLL, and that is what you have announced for the show tonight. 2 big segments, random tag, and a singles match that has background players in their own storylines. But there is an interesting thing they've announced for tonight in addition to that. They're doing some QR code gimmick with Mercedes Mone. And they're saying, keep an eye out for it all night, and you'll get a surprise from the CEO. Let me say one thing. This is not Uncle Howdy. People use QR codes all the time. AEW has been using QR codes before they made that announcement. So don't use the lazy idea. And I've seen people say this of, well, WWE's doing it, so they're trying to too. No, everybody uses them all the time. They're making a point to promote it and look for it, and that is good promotion. That is good marketing. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's a link to Mercedes' weekly newsletter or it's more than that. But at least it's something. I would like a stronger announced card or segments of those 4 things. I know Will Ospreay's off this week. Terrible aggregating news saying, well, he's on hiatus. He's like, yeah, I'm off a week. I'll be back. I would have written something in to explain that as opposed to him saying it, but that's me. Because that means he won't be present for the title match tonight. A title match that absolutely matters to him, because as Tony Khan said when he announced it on Collision, the winner of Roddy and Swerve will face Will for the AEW World Championship at Forbidden Door later this month. I don't need Will responding to a bad aggregate news site to tell me why he's not on TV tonight. There is a way to do that better. Will could have shown himself, I got to rest up. I'm in training for the match. I don't have a match on AEW. Tony Khan has allowed me to train at home. That's all. Not responding to a bad transcript of him not being on the show tonight. That's how we found out Will wasn't on TV tonight. You can fill in that gap. The MJF interview that went out on social media today on SI was as typical as it gets. You have to remember he's always working. What he's working towards, well, you will find out tonight. I think there's always a level of truth in what he says in interviews. I think there's always a level of character what he says in interviews. And I think that how his words come across in an interview like that, where it is very, I'm the best and this and that. I don't put stock into that until I see what he does on television. Is he a babyface? Is he a heel? I'm guessing babyface, but that was very much a, I'm the best guy, I'm the smartest guy, they missed me, blah, blah, blah. That's not babyface stuff. That's arrogant stuff. Also, just because people chanted your name for like a couple of seconds during the Pat McAfee show does not, like, then you're like, well, I'm big. I'm the biggest star in wrestling. Just focus on AEW. You put the tattoo on your ankle. You admitted you did the homage to Triple H with your leather and denim. I get it. You're a fan. I get it. You talking about everything but your own company all the time, not once in a while, all the time, doesn't help AEW. Let's see what he does tonight. I'm very intrigued. I will say that. What is MJF to AEW in June of 2024? Because last year sucked. Maxwell, Jacob, Hogan, Cena, not believable. Really annoying. Did not help the roster. Not great for ratings either. Not bad, not great for ratings. Let's see what the presentation is tonight. Let's see what the presentation is going forward. Where does he fit in? Can he be the guy they need him to be again? MJF, if or when he made the jump, I think he would skip like NXT. Yeah, he's on top. MJF and WWE and MJF and AEW would be two very different things. There is very much a feeling to me of MJF being a small fish in a big pond going to WWE. MJF and AEW is one of the homegrown people. We talked about this yesterday with Hangman. MJF is an AEW guy. MJF in WWE would be interesting, and then you would see him stand next to a lot of the WWE talent. That is one thing that gets hidden in AEW. Not a lot of tall dudes in AEW. That's why Billy Gunn stands out. Big Bill's a big dude, no doubt about it. Not a lot of big guys in AEW. And the big guys they have end up selling for the small guys, like Shane Taylor, like Lance Archer, like Brian Cage. They end up having to sell for the smaller guys. MJF is not big. I think he's 5'8". And I'm not saying size is... listen, I'm not saying that. He looks good. Ilya Dragunov's not big. He wrestles bigger than he is. But I think it would take a little bit away from the allure, the mystique of MJF, if he stood there next to Drew. If he stood there next to Damian Priest. It would be different. That's what I will say. Rob is right. Brian is short, but he's like, he could, he'd get one arm in this jacket and it would fall apart. And I'm not a big dude. I'm 6 foot tall. That's it, though. That's where my size ends in terms of like height and being jacked. That's not my thing. That's why I talked about it. Joe, I'll take this question. Hey, Matt, I only ever seen you on the bump. You're much more chill and enjoyable here. Did they give you guys actual bumps on that show? No bumps. Michael Hayes, though, just did once to go, "You're from the bump, huh?" Not the kind of bump I like. Dude. No, he doesn't say dude, by the way. But he laughed at the idea of the bump. Here's a fun fact. One of the names for the bump was almost ding, ding, ding. Like literally a bell sounding. Ding, ding, ding. The following contest is like it was going to be like that. That was... Also, thank you, Joe, for calling me more enjoyable. It's different, though. And I know you're kidding around. Or maybe you weren't. Whatever. It's an honest comment. I was part of the show. My paycheck said WWE on it. I have to be part of the show. I can have a broadcast journalist background and have some credibility that way, but the job is to still get people over that I was interviewing, to get over the storylines, to direct people to Raw and NXT and SmackDown and the PLEs. I like to write my interviews with some gray area and to try to get people to invest in the talent we had on the show, especially baby faces. And you could tell some real-life stories that way. The good talent would know how to handle that. But that was my job. I had to sell stuff. And believe me, it was harder at certain times than others. Certain time, like I said, I think I said, I've said it here. My last year plus, really, once Vince was out of the way, the shows have been better. The ratings will show you that. The numbers show you that. That made our job as talent, as broadcasters, that made our job easier. It's a better product. It's easier to sell a better product. The toughest thing for a broadcaster to do, I did this on the Indies. I did this when WWE went through some real ugly times when I was there, Thunderdome and those times. When it's bad creative and you got to make it sound good, that job is tough. It ain't hard for me to talk about Cody Rhodes and his story. I didn't want to say finish the story ever again, and I just did. And that branding and all that stuff happens. But yeah, if it's good, like I would have the same enthusiasm, although my words would be different, talking about the Chad Gable storyline on this show like I have, if I was still there. I would have to call Chad Gable a blah, oh, what a terrible dude, and blah, blah, blah. But Otis, I would direct that towards Otis. I would go, Otis is going to have to, listen, at some point, Otis is going to have enough of this. And we've talked about that this way, but I'm saying it going, man, Chad Gable's so good at what he does. I wouldn't be on the bump going, Chad Gable's so good at what he does. No, because then I'd be pulling the curtain back. We didn't do that with active storylines. We sure as shit did it when we had people on and we're talking about stuff for 10, 15 years ago or legends and, hey, what was going on there? That was different. That was understood. But if the product is good, it's easier to talk about. I root even now for good products. It's more fun to talk about. If it's spectacularly bad and we can laugh and have fun with it, sure. If it's bad and boring, that ain't easy. Here, that ain't easy for broadcasters in any company to talk about. If it's car crashy, funny, or, we talked about Riker and I were talking about that wedding with Lashley and Lana. God, that was so awful. But it was funny and ridiculous, so you can get moments out of it. We talked about Cardona getting wheeled off the stage. Terrible for him. But it still looks ridiculous. The boring stuff is the stuff that's brutal. The stuff that's not clicking, that they keep going back to, or Vince's bad humor written for people that were 40 years his junior, that he, and they'd have to read lines or recite lines of his awful humor. That never made sense. He wasn't in touch with pop culture. Giving people, there was a time, the reason Big Bronson Reed is because everybody got a nickname. When Vince was back in the mix for a little bit, Badass Braun Breaker was a thing for like a week. It was like a mandate from digital to Seth freaking Rollins. Seth freaking Rollins, there's another one. And he covered it going on social. That's right, baby. It's my birth name. Seth freaking Rollins. That's all Vince stuff. You do need branding, yes. But there was always like these unbelievable descriptors in the scripts. the pugnacious and blah, 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 Butch, the mangy mutt. Like, that stuff's gone for the most part. You do need some of that. But when everybody has this long descriptor and 9,000 adjectives, people need it. The Scottish psychopath, stuff like that stuff's fine. The American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Yes, of course, that works. Just like the American Dream, but it was simple. So much of that stuff was forced. When that stuff started to go away, it made it better. There were ways to describe wrestlers that you could talk about in a match. Descriptors, adjectives, whatever. I thought there was something to that. But you could hear when it was scripted, and I think that's a problem. Let's see. Rob, you're going to get back in fantasy football. No plans. Not really. I don't really miss it. I don't think so. But we will be back tomorrow because we will have a lot to talk about with AEW Dynamite. We'll be back with you at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow right here on the Wrestling Mat. And please subscribe, thewrestlingmatshow.com. We're over 1,000 subscribers, already pushing 1,100. Love to get to that number. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please go check out some of our other content that's on the channel, whether it be these past live shows. We started a couple weeks ago. We're into the third full week of the show. You can go check those out at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Please subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, WrestlingMatt23. That's where you would have first found out, other than watching the show yesterday, about Matt Cardona being on and everything we're going to talk about today. We thank him once again for joining us. Go check out GCW and everything he is doing there. And, we're working on some other guests for the future, some more of that content because we did get to that 1,000 subscriber number. So a little bonus content coming your way. Keep an eye on that, and our social media is the way to do that. And, of course, you can follow me on all social media at The Matt Camp. Check out Dynamite tonight so we can come back and all talk about it tomorrow. Any other news that breaks, we'll cover that right here too. So I want to thank everybody that made today happen. Thank you for you guys always being active in the chat. Joe, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being with me. I'm glad I'm more palatable now in this format versus what I used to do. And thank you to everybody for joining me. Thanks to Matt Cardona once again. To paraphrase the great Tim Naki, we'll be back tomorrow when we'll be talking about wrestling even more. See you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Wrestling Mat.